a true dragon, the strongest creature in the world, and standing beside her, an emperor whose power can turn proud fighters into pawns. Yuuki thought he could play the empire from inside the throne room. Today, the board finally turns on him. AI Anime and Manga presents. If you want more full light novel style episodes like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel reach the right anime fans, and Patreon members get early access while helping cover the AI narration, subtitles, images, and render bills. Now, let's return to the Empire, where absolute power has just entered the room. Without a sound, before anyone knew what had happened, she was standing right there. Her presence was overwhelmingly strong, her hair blue, her face beautiful. It was the first time Yuuki had met her directly, but he felt as if he already knew this figure from somewhere, the one on the other side of the curtain, seated next to the Emperor, the Marshal. Damrada's whisper sounded bizarrely loud. Lady Velgrynd. Velgrynd, does he mean? At that moment, Yuuki realized his face was too tense to move. A true dragon, the strongest creature in the world, was before him now, and their powers were beyond compare. Yuuki thought, this sure ain't good. I didn't sense this when I saw Ludora, but with her, it's not even a question of winning or losing. Fighting someone like her head-on would just be suicide. But despite that realization, Yuuki refused to give up. If a head-on confrontation was doomed to fail, he would simply find a back door, and Yuuki had the perfect special move for that. Play his cards right, he thought, and victory seemed possible enough.
I never would have guessed Her Excellency the Marshal was a true dragon all along. Now I understand why Guy hasn't made a move yet.
Velgrynd answered with mild admiration. My, how unusual for a human. I admire you for not losing your nerve around me.
Thanks. And by the way, it'd be really great if you could let me go. What do you think?
Velgrynd's answer was almost casual. That's fine by me. I don't have any business with you, my dear husband does. Velgrynd took a step back. Only then did Yuuki notice the other man present, his eyes opened wide. Standing next to Velgrynd was a man in an extravagant outfit that was no doubt worth an astronomical amount of money. Yuuki knew his face well.
Masayuki? Nah, no way it's him. Or...
To Yuuki, this man had to be Masayuki's identical twin, but he noticed a few differences. The most obvious one was the hair color. The man before him had shining blonde hair, while Masayuki usually dyed his hair blonde and naturally had the standard black hair of most Japanese people. Looking more closely, Yuuki could sense differences in the eyes too. Masayuki's were always either darting around or just kind of blank, unthinking, but this man looked like he could see through everything. It almost felt like those eyes could consume you if you weren't careful. No way were they the same person, Yuuki thought. Guess not, huh? Now reasonably sure of that, Yuuki realized who the man really was. If Velgrynd called him her husband, that left only one candidate.
Emperor Ludora?
Damrada provided the reply. That's right, Sir Yuuki. This is His Majesty, Emperor Ludora, the ruler standing at the peak of the empire. Damrada was on his knees already, not even caring if he got his clothes dirty. He urgently wanted to prove to Ludora that he bore no animosity. Yuuki couldn't blame him. He knew how much more Ludora meant to him. The real issue was why Ludora was here at all.
Well, color me shocked. Why is your eminence in a meeting hall like this? Are you bored or...
The Emperor replied, unaffected by Yuuki's teasing. No, I am quite a busy man. My game against Guy is in the closing stages. I have no time to trifle with other matters. This seemed to astound Damrada. He never thought Ludora would actually address someone lower than himself, and he never thought Velgrynd would allow it.
Oh? Well, you better stop bumping around my place then.
Ludora cut him off. Enough nonsense. I want you to join me. Agree to it, and I'll let you keep your free will. It was an order, one from far above, delivered to a lowly worm on the ground. Yuuki hated this type of person more than anything else, but for some reason he felt like he just couldn't resist. Yuuki wondered if this was thought guidance in action. It resembled the brand of dominance Maribel had tried on him, but far stronger. The power annoyed him greatly. But since Yuuki had anti-skill handy, he could cancel out any skill-driven order on him. Or he should have been able to. No, this wasn't any simple power like that. Yuuki shivered as he came to that realization. It took a mighty effort not to fall to his knees. This was pure charisma, the unimaginable supremacy of a ruler capable of subjugating anything he saw. Yuuki resisted it with all his might.
Not bad. I wasn't expecting you to break out this cheat code on me from the very start.
He spat on the floor in anger, a little blood mixed in. It was usually Yuuki dominating encounters like these from the start, and he hated having his style copied like this. But he was still in the clear. He was angry, and that emotion was proof that Ludora's control on him was broken. With a bold smile, Yuuki looked his way, only to find the Emperor giving him a quizzical look of his own.
What's wrong? Strange to find your power doesn't work on me, huh?
Ludora started to object, but Velgrynd had already caught the mistake. Velgrynd answered with light laughter, which didn't make Ludora feel any better. Don't bother, Ludora. When this kid was exposed to your presence, he mistook it for a mental attack. You have to use a lighter touch, or you'll break him before he can even join you. Ludora seemed puzzled. What, this won't work? Velgrynd continued to enjoy herself. No, you don't have enough people in your life you speak to on equal terms. That makes it hard for you to control your strength. Yuuki heard all this and trembled in humiliation. Yuuki thought, are you kidding me? Do I not even register to them? Let's take that smug attitude and rip it apart right now.
That's fine, I'll admit it. You guys are definitely the greatest rulers the world's ever known. But you know, if you have all that power and still can't conquer the entire world, then to me you could hardly be more incompetent.
As usual, he kicked things off with provocation. Velgrynd responded first. Brash of you. How about we kill him after all, Ludora? Bringing this kid into the fold wouldn't make that much difference strength-wise against Guy. Why keep him around just so he can sass us like this? But Ludora was more magnanimous than that. Oh, don't say that. Maybe you see him as insignificant, but give him the right education and he can grow to become a tremendously useful pawn. And isn't a little defiance now and then a nice change of pace? A cat, after all, is just as cute if it refuses to sidle up to you. I like him. It was Ludora's way of completely degrading Yuuki. He snorted at it. Taunting Ludora wouldn't accomplish much if it did nothing to bother him. It was time to break out the big guns. With Velgrynd around, Yuuki couldn't waste a lot of time. He would have to tap his greatest weapon from the get-go and use the momentum from it to subdue the true dragon. Yuuki steeled himself.
You want me to join you? Fine, but I'm not about to serve someone weaker than me. If you want me around, you're gonna have to show me some real power.
As soon as he shouted it, Yuuki began to act. No time for small talk, no point in putting on a performance. The ultimate skill Mammon converted the size of one's desires into actual power, and Yuuki knew he was a greedy man. It was only natural, he thought, that he awakened to the power he took from Maribel. That was why he firmly believed that a skill as outlandishly unfair as Mammon made him the strongest in the entire world. So who would he target first? It had to be Ludora. He would take control of the Emperor, using him as a hostage against Velgrynd. If that let him survive this crisis, this whole day would be a blessing in disguise. Such bullish optimism was Yuuki's driving force, and it had brought him great success so far. This time, too, he would make a huge leap forward. It was the only thought in his mind as he started running. In another few steps, he was within punching range. In less time than the blinking of an eye, Yuuki's hand was about to touch Ludora. He activated Life Absorb, one of Mammon's sub-skills, in his right hand, combining it with anti-skill. This fearsome combo allowed him to penetrate through any barriers his target might have covering him. This was what Life Stealer was meant for. And unlike with Damrada, Yuuki didn't care if this attack was lethal or not. If Ludora died, it only meant he had Velgrynd alone to deal with. Escaping two strong opponents would be a formidable challenge, but a single one was far more manageable. If Ludora survived, though, that was where Yuuki's left hand came in. It was infused with heart control, a terrifying power that acted on the target's emotions and even affected their memories. It was a dominating force, one even more vicious and irresistible than Maribel's own greed. Yuuki planned to use this 1-2 punch to blaze a path through this, but the plan was quickly shattered. Velgrynd stepped into his path. "You will not lay a hand on Ludora in my presence." Yuuki was running his body to the absolute upper limits of speed, but not even he could keep Velgrynd from stepping between him and the Emperor. Then, without breaking a sweat, she swatted Yuuki's right hand away. He was stunned. Having his hand blocked was a surprise, but even more astounding was the sheer amount of energy that flowed from Velgrynd. It was a raging torrent, enough to make Yuuki vomit blood. In a single exchange, his body was infused with far more magicules than he could ever hope to withstand. Instantly, he realized the danger, forcibly twisting his body to get away. If he reacted even a moment later, his body would have been completely destroyed. It wasn't that Velgrynd did anything to him exactly, quite the opposite. All she did was push Yuuki's hand away. The damage was more self-destructive in a way. He had activated Life Stealer, and then he used it to absorb far more energy than he could control. As blood flowed from his mouth, eyes, and nose, Yuuki thought over what had just happened. That was insane. How beyond my allowable limit was that? I'm at a point where I can take in dozens of high-level elementals without issue, and I got all filled up in a single instant? How crazy are true dragons anyway? Yuuki wanted to complain to the gods about it. Velgrynd was nobody to trifle with. Despite all the energy taken from her, she acted like she was in no pain at all. Yuuki's attack wasn't even worth defending in her eyes. Now he realized how impossible this was. Damn it, I had no idea there was this much difference. No wonder I barely register with them. They were undeniably on the same level as Guy. Realizing that, Yuuki now knew just how lofty the great heights of the world truly were. It was an impossible gap to traverse, and he only knew it because of the ultimate ability he had awakened to. Staging any kind of attack against them would be suicide. He had no choice but to wait for his enemy to make a move. Ludora made his offer with unsettling courtesy. "I'd advise you not to try anything rash, please. I've come to you on my own volition. And indeed, why don't I respond to your request to see my power?" Velgrynd warned him. "That's a bad habit to indulge, Ludora. Leave that to me. I don't want you getting hurt." Ludora answered with a laugh. "Well, that won't be very convincing now, will it?" This was stirring the pot, nothing more. Yuuki wasn't about to let them take all his favorite party tricks away from him.
Glad you know what I'm talking about. Realistically speaking, I think I've already lost. But I'm not a quitter, you know? Don't expect me to give up that easy.
He knew he was being a sore loser. But Yuuki decided to grandstand a bit anyway. Now that he knew there was no way to beat Velgrynd, all he needed to protect was his dignity. Even if it got him killed, he wanted to have things his way right to the very end. Infused with a new drive, he glared at Ludora. The Emperor responded with a curious smile. Ludora said, "Very well, let me take you on. I will tell you in advance that domination is a strong suit of mine. If you can endure it, you win, and you may go wherever you wish." The unexpected offer made Yuuki steal his eyes. Ludora clearly meant it. He really didn't mind letting Yuuki go. And while Yuuki couldn't read his intentions here, Ludora saw this confrontation in rather simple terms. Yuuki could gain experience through this, experience that would give him even stronger powers. Once that was done, they could talk it over again, and then Ludora would have Yuuki in his hands. The two of them were completely different in ability. That was why Yuuki found Ludora so creepy and why his taunts enraged him. Yuuki thought, domination's his strong suit? Well, it's the same for me. I'm gonna bet it all on this mammon skill. Ludora looked at him, bemused and excited about his first match in a long time. If Yuuki could withstand his domination skills, this might prove to be one treacherous ally indeed. He was aware of the possibility, but he still chose to engage him. Yuuki told himself that if this was enough to crush him, then that was as far as his ideals would take him. Defeat wasn't even on his mind, and if Yuuki merely pretended to obey him, that was not the end of the world either. Taming pawns like that, he was sure, was the only way he could truly become the world's sole dominant ruler. Velgrynd had known Ludora for a long time. She didn't need it spelled out to know what he was thinking. That was why she knew how useless it was to chide him for this. Velgrynd took a step back. All right. If you lose, then I'll make sure to avenge you. Ludora chuckled as he stepped forward. You hardly need to worry. Yuuki followed suit, ignoring his screaming aches and pains as he stood up. Ludora continued. Your group certainly is interesting, though. No wonder Guy praised you all as the jokers disrupting this whole game.
How did you know that?
Ludora's answer landed with calculated ease. I just received a report from Tatsuya about them. The moderate jesters, I think they're called? Well, their leader's fallen into our hands too. And I'll also tell you this. Everything about you is now fully known to me. Keep that in mind as you challenge me. Tatsuya was Lieutenant Kondo's given name. Ludora must have had some way to keep in contact with him, and he must have reported on defeating Kagali just now. Realizing all this, Yuuki let out a sigh of disgust. Everything from his unique constitution to the fight and subsequent conversations he had with Guy had been leaked. Yuuki had told everyone he trusted about his ultimate skill. Damrada had faithfully kept it a secret, but now all that was meaningless. Kagali was Yuki's closest confidant, and naturally she knew all his secrets. Yuuki thought, oh man, I'm dead. So they know absolutely everything about me? Suddenly Yuuki had an urge to throw it all away. His mind told him he was out of ideas, but his pride would never allow him to retreat at this point. But most of all, then Kagali isn't dead? Ludora's got some kind of domination skill, and if I had to guess, Kondo's got something close to that. In which case, instead of trying to run, in an instant he formulated a plan. It had a very low chance of success, but it made him feel better than taking things on with zero strategy.
Well, how kind of you to say, but all that ease is gonna be your downfall.
Ludora welcomed the challenge. That's fine. I tend to believe I've won only when I've surpassed my opponent's full strength. So please, by all means, give it your all as well. I don't want you having any regrets. Ludora took another step forward. Then he assumed a fighting stance, a unique one with no weapons involved. He was a swordsman by training, as proven by the longsword on his belt. But he intended to defeat Yuuki purely by domination, as promised. Yuuki had already seen through Ludora's personality. He had a firm, honest disposition, one not befitting a ruler at all, and now he was sincerely aiming to battle Yuuki. That was what made him so easy to read. Yuuki thought, honestly, winning here in the primary definition of the term is impossible. Even if I pull something off against Ludora, Velgryn's still here. If I can't escape, then the best I can hope for is to cancel out Ludora's domination. But Ludora had to be expecting that, and what was more, he had total confidence that he could take control of Yuuki. And so the only option Yuuki had left was betting everything on the slightest of probabilities.
Bring it on, Ludora.
Ludora answered with the imperial power itself, Regalia Dominion. With a balletic move, Ludora sprang into action, instantly closing the distance between himself and Yuuki. Once he was in range, he began activating his imperial domination, the very pinnacle of powers offered by his ultimate skill Michael, Lord of Justice. Unlike the imitation he had granted to Kondo, this skill had no limitations, and its powers were an order of magnitude greater. Even among ultimate skills, there were still subclassifications in rank, and for someone as recently awakened as Yuuki, there was no way to resist this one. Ludora stood there, as dignified as could be. Yuuki collapsed on the spot. The winner and loser seemed clear now, but the outcome remained unknown. Velgrynd questioned him. Are you sure you won't kill him? People like him, you know, they'll pretend to obey you, and then they'll wait for just the right moment to strike. Ludora's confidence remained unshakable. That's fine. That's what makes it so fun. I'm letting him off the hook as a reward for resisting my dominance. His absolute dominance was assured in his mind, and he didn't doubt his victory for a moment. Velgrynd accepted that. All right then, Ludora, the victor, boldly smiled. Then he turned toward Damrada, who was staying politely silent in a corner of the room, and addressed him like an old friend. Ludora said, "Forgive me, Damrada, but I cannot have you getting in my way just yet." Damrada obeyed immediately. "As you wish, Your Majesty." That was all it took for the two of them to be on the same page. Ludora continued. "When he wakes up, please take care of him for me." Damrada replied, "Yes, Your Majesty." Satisfied with that reply, Ludora left with Velgrynd in tow. He had only just begun tightening the reins on his government, and now that he was on the move, a new era was about to begin. Not even the capital would escape the waves of upheaval. Even though it was the middle of the night, the sky turned red as a rain of pure crimson began to fall. At Dwargan's East City, the armed nation was currently weathering a blockade of up to 60,000 people. But it was all a cover. Beneath the surface, both sides had made it clear that they were allied, the commanders all taking great pains to ensure that no unfortunate accidents took place. With that in mind, the mood among the lower-ranked soldiers was light. Camping tents had been set up across the area, each filled with idle chatter. Even so, there was still a modicum of tension shared by everyone, even the rank and file. That indicated the surprisingly high level of training every member of the army had received. It was no wonder morale was high. Their superiors were currently engaged in their final meeting, one where the dream of overthrowing the empire and building a new nation would come to a head. Everyone was looking forward to it, and everyone had their eyes on the capital in anticipation. That was why most of them noticed it at the same time. One soldier murmured, "It's red." Another asked, "Is the capital aflame?" A third voice sharpened with alarm. What happened? Wait, did they find out? On this most critical of days, something was happening over in the imperial capital, and nobody thought it was a coincidence. Everyone knew that something had happened to their leaders. One soldier suggested sending out a recon team. Another wanted to organize the troops and march. A third snapped that if they did that, it would completely expose them as traitors. Having all their superiors away from the force meant there was no one to take command. The composite division, already derided as a motley crew in the best of times, quickly lost cohesion. The one who finally brought them back in order was a person who had silently closed his eyes before then. His name was Zero, a man Yuuki named as Corps Vice Commander, and he was the highest-ranked person on the field. Zero's declaration cut through the panic. "Silence! I will not allow anyone to act without permission. We will stay here and wait for Sir Yuuki and the others to return. That will remain our policy." With Zero's declaration, those wavering in their opinions fell back in line. Nobody knew what the right answer was, so for now, they decided to follow orders. But not even that could alleviate the anxiety, and those anxieties came true in the worst possible fashion. Velgryn's voice reached them first. "Good evening, you oblivious fools. I know it's a lovely night tonight, but that doesn't mean you should all get too excited." The woman walked along the street totally carefree with the ease of a vacationing tourist. It was Velgrynd, her blue hair as beautiful as always. A soldier on the edge of the street shouted at her. "What? Who are you?" If she was calling out to uniformed soldiers, she couldn't have been an innocent civilian. And even before that, anyone who didn't recognize Velgrynd's utterly unusual presence could never survive in the composite division. So they began confirming her identity, sending messages out to their superiors as they moved to surround her. One soldier, a man with decent confidence in his fighting skill, stepped forward. He warned her, "Whoa there, lady. I don't know who you are, but I wouldn't be picking a fight with this many people if I were you. We may not look all fancy, but we're in the composite division, the strongest army of the empire." Velgrynd cut him down with words first. "It really is funny, isn't it, the weak calling themselves the strongest? I was willing to let it slide if it kept morale high, but perhaps we should have stopped allowing it at the division level." The soldier recoiled. "What?" Velgrynd's words were those of someone at the highest reaches of society, someone giving orders from far above anyone else in the military hierarchy. It was more than enough for even the raw recruits to know they were dealing with someone dangerous. Zero, as vice commander, was no exception. When he heard this intruder was alone, he transported himself over to see who it was. Once he heard the subsequent reports, he upped his pace toward the scene. Now Velgrynd was before him. Zero recognized her in a shaken voice. "Marshal." He had never seen the Marshal's face, but the presence she exuded was undoubtedly that of the overwhelming figure seated on the other side of the curtain. Velgrynd approved his recognition. "Ah, so there are some more intelligent ones among you as well. Good. I was told not to kill all of you, but just to have some fun until Kondo and the others arrive." With that signal, the tragedy began. Gazel was having a depressing day. The war was still dragging along, which was a headache by itself. But more than that, Jane's report made him feel like his stomach was going to rupture. Gazel thought, making true demon lords out of those serving him, what could possibly have gotten into Rimuru? He heaved a heavy sigh. Calling them true demon lords was something of a misnomer. Demon Lord was a title, not a species, and it literally meant a lord who ruled over monsters within a set territory. True Demon Lord, however, described the status of a monster, one awakened and evolved into that state. The threat they posed would be on the upper end of disaster class, but it wouldn't rate a calamity. Gazel thought that there weren't enough disaster class threats to merit dividing them into upper or lower classes. The disaster class was essentially reserved for demon lords, so right now it consisted of only 8 known examples. Now, however, Rimuru had people working for him who were at least as powerful as those high-end menaces. Just thinking about it gave the heroic king a headache. For now, Gazel sent a griping missive to Elmesia about it. He couldn't stand to be the only one suffering, so he decided to have her share in the distress a bit. That, and his government decided to continue observing Rimuru and his band until further problems arose. It was just kicking the ball down the road, he knew. But there was nothing else they could do. If further problems ever came up, it would be the beginning of a war for the survival of humanity.
And I truly don't want that.
Gazel sighed. But the bad news would not stop coming. The urgent report arrived. Urgent news, Your Majesty. The Composite Division is on the move. They're engaged in battle with an unknown enemy. The voice was calm, but Gazel sensed a panic atypical of his dark agents. Before more details came in, he immediately sent out word to assemble Dolph and the rest of his advisors. A few minutes later, Gazel was on a magical call to Vaughn, Admiral Paladin and Supreme Commander of Dwargan's military, who was currently stationed by the East City. He had Vaughn send visuals so everyone could grasp the situation. Vaughn reported, no doubt about it, that enemy's nothing regular people can handle. It's a monster, an unimaginable monster who could even take down demon lords.
A true dragon?
Vaughn answered, yeah, I've never seen one before. She took the form of a person, but there's no doubting her identity as Velgrynd. The worst-case scenario always happens when you least expect it, a fact Gazel was all too aware of now. The sky was burning. There was a woman, a cold beauty, and crowds of powerful soldiers fallen around her. The flames were mesmerizing but also vigorous enough to awe everyone who saw them. But the true horror only came after that. Velgrynd, visible through the surveillance crystal ball, looked over at Gazel and his team. He thought it was a coincidence at first, but the moment he did, the crystal ball shattered.
She was watching us too.
One advisor stammered. I can't believe it. How is that possible? Another cried out. You're kidding! How far away do you think we are from there? The explanation came grimly. It's the truth. She must have sensed the magic and traced it back to the caster, but it's incredible to see her impacting the magic's destination as well. It'd be impossible for me or any other humanoid. Gazel listened to his advisors in silence. Based on this, they were clearly dealing with an enemy. But who? He couldn't possibly hear her, but it was like she was whispering into his ear. No, don't you peep on me, Gazel thought. A true dragon? More like true monster. Now Gazel knew what the word strongest really meant. He was familiar with the rumors of a connection between the Empire and Velgrynd. They had no way to confirm them, but he had played through a lot of scenarios in his mind so that they would be able to withstand attack. Now, however, Gazel realized it was all just an illusion. It was unclear why the Empire had sent Velgrynd on the move at this point. Gazel thought and thought, but he couldn't understand what Emperor Ludora was thinking. There was only one thing he could do.
I'm going into battle as well.
Dolph bellowed. Your Majesty, it's too unsafe. Jane replied, but there is no other choice. Abandoning Vaughn right now will do nothing to save Dwargan. You will need to prepare yourself too, Dolph. There was little Dolph could say in return. He had no intention of just letting Vaughn die, and as he now realized, admonishing Gazel would do nothing to change the situation. Dolph said, I will make preparations to leave as soon as possible.
Very good.
Gazel gravely nodded and closed his eyes. They had a lot of work to do. All their allied nations would need to be informed, and they would have to give instructions on what to do with the remaining citizens in the area. If Gazel and his men were victorious, then great. But if they were defeated, what then? There was nowhere else for people to run to, no way of survival except to become imperial vassals. It meant the fall of the nation of Dwargen, and if Gazel wanted to avoid that, he couldn't afford to lose.
The East City will not have enough room for our entire army, I imagine. I'll let the old guard handle command while the rest of the army marches on the ground. See to that for me, Jane.
Jane answered, "Very well. But what do you intend to do, King Gazel?"
I'm going on ahead. If you're late to this, don't expect a place at the table.
Gazel revealed a bold smile, playing the role of a strong king to ease everyone's anxiety. The army was to be mobilized as quickly as possible, but Gazel's group would not wait for them. Dolph and his Pegasus Knights would be the king's only companions. As Gazel flew across the sky, a thought occurred to him. Gazel thought, is this why Rimuru gave his underlings all that power, so they could survive this? If so, I have to say he's as naive as ever. He laughed at this revelation, thinking about the ex-training partner who could not throw away his ideals. His smile was nothing he could hold back. Dolph asked, "Is something wrong, my lord?"
No, just a passing fantasy.
Dolph replied, "I beg your pardon?"
Now, of all times, I started thinking about Rimuru. It made me wonder if things could work out this time, too.
Gazel laughed. He thought he was being overly optimistic, but it beat the opposite end of the spectrum. Dolph smiled back. Indeed, it was the case with Charybdis as well. Lord Rimuru can simply boggle the mind at times. I was amazed at the connection he had with the demon lord Malim. Henrietta usually kept her mouth shut, but even she had some sass in her at times. Well, if you're going to bring that up, you should also mention the hardships I've faced monitoring him. People assuming that everything I report back to them is a lie is growing tiresome. Gazel and Dolph couldn't hide their surprise. Dolph answered with a laugh. "Sorry, I'll try to avoid assuming that next time."
Even you have some complaints about your job, eh, Henrietta?
Henrietta replied, "Of course I do."
In that case, Henrietta, tell Rimuru that next time you see him, why, he's a pain to me as well. I trust you too firmly, but Rimuru's behavior is simply too asinine to believe. When I heard the report from Jane, I began to question her sanity.
Dolph admitted, "It was one fearsome report, yes." Henrietta added, "Normally I'm the one giving those reports, so it was nice seeing it unfold as a spectator this time." The venom Henrietta was spitting made both Gazel and Dolph laugh, their voices echoing through the sky. Henrietta continued, "I will mention that I've sent a report of our activities to Lord Rimuru, along with some measured complaining."
Did you?
Gazel nodded and turned his head forward. The anxiety was gone now, replaced with his usual heroic flair as he flew toward the battleground. Going back in time a little bit, it was the day after Elmesia's and my little drinking party, and the sun was already way up in the sky.
Up early, aren't you, Sir Rimuru?
I answered immediately. "I'm sorry. Shuna is so scary when she's smiling." I decided to beat her to the punch with an apology. "First I get drunk, then I enjoy a little nap. I worked hard to regain those luxuries, so I don't see why I have to be yelled at about it."
So did you come to a conclusion?
She stared at me as she sighed. I asked, about what?
You were troubled about it last night as well, weren't you? I am worried you're about to do something rash again, and I'm far from the only one.
When she said that, I couldn't help but feel a little jittery. "Don't worry, I'm not doing anything rash here. If it doesn't work out, I'll run and then I'll bitch at Guy and make him do something about it. First though, I had to try a little. Out loud, I kept it cheerful. Hey, we'll figure it out, okay? I'll be safe with it like I always am." My cheerful reply didn't remove Shuna's anxious expression. It's hard to fool her, what with her unique skill parser and all. Or maybe it was too obvious to even require that. I mean, I didn't really want to do anything dangerous. I was taking a safety-first approach, but we had no idea about our enemy's strength. Lieutenant Kondo, Velgrynd, and Emperor Ludora were fearsome opponents no matter how you sliced it. Winning may not be a possibility, and for all I know, I might even be killed on the spot. I was trying to think of ways to avoid that outcome, but not even Raphael had an answer this time. If we didn't know, though, we would just go for it. My only choice was to throw in the maximum amount of war power I had and reduce the danger as much as possible. And so, I told Shuna, I deliberated a lot over who I'd take with me. This time around, I'm going with my A-team only. I'm sorry to say this, but if you don't have enough strength to pitch in, I think you're just gonna slow us down.
All right. My brother's been bragging all morning about how he's going with you.
I suppose my thoughts were obvious from the start. I had been engaged with Elmesia since the previous morning, so I didn't tell everyone about my conversation with Guy yet, but Shuna's smile seemed to indicate that she understood it all. I smiled back, realizing how there was never any tricking her. Then she gave me her report in her usual natural voice.
That fishy little sneak Laplace slinked in here last night. He said he had a message for you, but he gave us no advance warning, so we've been keeping him waiting for the time being.
Rather abrupt change of subject there, but it didn't seem like anything too important to me. If it was a real emergency, Ghidorah or someone would have contacted me. Probably a message from Yuuki, but what could it be? I said, I guess I'll see him, although I'm not crazy about the idea.
I'd much prefer to shoo him away, but he is an ally, more or less. I'll show him to a reception room.
Shuna wasn't a fan of Laplace either, it looked like. That was rare for her. She wasn't one to be so frank about her likes and dislikes, but clearly those clowns irked her. I guess she couldn't ever truly forgive Laplace and his crew for destroying their ogre homeland. He and I were allies, but I'd need to keep that in mind. I ordered Shuna. While I'm talking to Laplace, I'd like you to summon all the cabinet staff who are awake to our meeting hall. I had a lot of things to think about, but I could worry about them all after our war with the Empire was over. Banishing all doubt from my mind, I decided to take care of the immediate problem first. 20 people, including myself, were gathered in the meeting hall. There was Rigurd and the 4 elders beneath him, Rugurd, Rugurd, and Lilina. I also had Kaijin, Vester, and Mjolnir in here. Representing the 12 lordly guardians were Benimaru, Shion, Diablo, Gabiru, Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera. So I, Hakuro, Gupta, and for good measure, Ghidorah rounded out the pack. I planned to ask Ghidorah to guide me around the Empire. Even I had to admit it wasn't going to be an easy job. But honestly, he'd be the least affected out of us all if something went wrong, so I wanted him to play his part. Speaking of which, Bernie volunteered to guide us as well, but I rejected the offer. He had lost all his powers, and he'd be nothing but a liability to us. Ghidorah alone would do. Anyway, feels like I was just having meetings all the time, but no point complaining about that now. Our country had grown too big for me to call all the shots myself. Of course, as I say that, this meeting's mainly about me dictating to everyone what I've decided to do, but still. As usual, Shuna served tea to everyone. Once she quietly left the room, I began speaking. I addressed the room. I've called all of you in today to inform you about my decisions for the final battle against the Empire. Before that, though, come on in. I had already decided who I'd be taking with me, so there was no point hurrying this. Instead, I decided to introduce Laplace, our messenger, to everyone. As expected, Laplace had news concerning our plans to fight together. The army blockading Dwargan's city would be attacking the Imperial capital soon, and they wanted us to join them, basically. Guy had already told me about that, and I had no objections. But the conclusion I came to was that this would be a war between the elites on both sides, not a war of armies. I didn't want to see any civilian casualties, so in the end I decided I had to discuss the details with Yuuki first. That was why I chose to bring the clown into this meeting on short notice. I had already spoken with Yuuki via Laplace. The date had been set for the following afternoon. This I explained to everyone in the room. I really wish Laplace could have done that for me, but people had a lot of trust problems with him, so I rejected the idea. Trust, I was reminded all over again, really is important. Laplace made his suspiciously cheerful entrance. Hello. My name's Laplace, and I'm the vice president of a group of, helpful ladies and gents we like to call the Moderate Jesters. I'm here today 'cause Yuuki sent me, you see? Oh man, is it impossible for him not to act suspicious? And why did he choose this moment to dance a little jig to himself? But he was still here as a messenger, so I couldn't just boot him out. I wasn't the only one annoyed by this either. so A looked like he was about to kill him. I know how he feels, but he'll have to be patient. I gave the order before this became a problem. So A, put that kunai blade away, please.
Yes, sir.
Route confirmed. The next episode and full playlist are ready.
Then don't stop here. Keep watching in story order and subscribe before the next part drops.